Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is DK Bhattacharya. We will be talking about Mesolithic cultural chronology. Before we go into Mesolithic cultural chronology, we must realize some important facts of the emergence of Mesolithic culture. For a long time, we have taken it as a small transitional period from Paleolithic to Neolithic. And this small transition may not be chronologically controlled. Sometimes it happened later, sometimes it happened earlier. Whatever, the reasons or the range of reasons for which this transition occurred need to be considered. One of the reasons that was argued was this, that Holocene marks a change of climate, and when the change of climate came, two things happened. The large mammals which were adapted to Pleistocene period and climate were all migrated or went extinct. Some of them went extinct, some of them migrated to the northern latitudes. We have one which is still there in the northern latitude, and that is called Rangifer tarandus, or reindeer. Now reindeers are still surviving in the northern latitudes, but earlier it was found in the middle latitudes as well. So you find that most of the large mammals are gone or migrated, and man was left high and dry because he had to adapt himself to some new subsistence base. Incidentally, the beginning of Holocene caused the creation of a large number of bogs and lakes. The dry areas, like interpluvial areas, the rivers became dried and they created what is known as horseshoe lakes. In the wet areas, the glaciers melted down, and the water, some of them went into the sea and some of them got trapped into depressions, forming big lakes. And you have lakes high up in the mountains, like Nainital for instance. You have a lake high up in the mountains, and if there was a way for the water to pass through, it would have gone through was flown into like any river. So you have these kind of lakes all over. Also, the beginning of Holocene marks the 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 submersion of many part of land, and land bridges were all gone because the sea water covered it and islands were formed. And man had no other alternative but to adapt to this new ecosystem. Now, this is environmental archaeology. This new environment, man had to adapt himself. Some of them migrated to the northern latitudes also. Maybe their descendants are the Eskimos today. But those who did not, they had to adapt to the new environment. And they found huge number of birds coming to these lakes. And these birds were all eating fish from the lake. So lake was full of fish. There were virgin lakes full of fish, and there were birds coming. You know, these birds, which could give as much as 5 to 6 kg of flesh, couldn't fly very high. They would hop around and large, like stork, for instance. A man thought he will try to adapt to this ecosystem and this subsistence base. And he found that his Paleolithic tools were not suited for these animals or these fishes, and he created very small microliths. Very small, insignificant microliths. The first thing he sacrificed was the weight of the stone because he wanted it to fly. And if it could fly, he could create what is known as bow and arrow. We know how a bow was created. I've talked about it earlier. It was found during the high wind currents. Big trees will bend down, and when the wind is gone, the tree will come back to its original position. So man, as a keen observer of his ecosystem, saw that nature has its own elasticity. So this elasticity of a tree for bending down and coming back was harnessed by man to create his bow. So a bow and arrow was created for the first time in early Holocene. We know it because we have cave paintings of Holocene period, of Mesolithic period, coming from Levant in West Asia, and also from Bhimbetka, where bow and arrow is shown as a hunting implement. So man took to hunting with bow and arrow, and this hunting is called fishing and fowling. This is not large mammal hunting. And since it is not large mammal hunting, it requires no stalking. Large mammal hunting requires large amount of stalking. You have to run after the animal for days together, and then possibly you can trap one of those large mammals. But fishing and fowling required no running around, so to say. And since he didn't have to do any running around, the body fat increased. Now this body fat is very interesting. When the body fat goes down, women stop ovulation. women are infertile when the body fat goes down. In medical parlance, it is called postpartum amenorrhea. Postpartum amenorrhea means when the mother is breastfeeding, the mother is infertile. So the same thing happens when the prehistoric people are hunting and moving around. Their body fat is expended and they remain basically infertile. It's a beautiful way of God's mechanism of seeing that a hunter or a hunting gathering community is not saddled with two babies when they have to all the time walk around and move around. So the second baby will be formed or will be created only after 4 years. So there is a long period of infertility in the hunter gatherers. And the moment they took to fishing and fowling, the body fat increased and women became fertile and women became, evolution started. So without knowing, man started multiplying exponentially. Exponential growth of population is 4 to become 16, 16 becomes 256. So